You're listening to the Flow Theory Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to the Flow Theory Podcast, a Fresno State football legend, Marcus Riley, the 2007 WAC Defensive Player of the Year, a man that laid an absolutely ferocious hit on Colt Brennan back in the day. Hey, Marcus, thanks so much for coming on the show, man.
Thanks for having me, Wade.
Really appreciate you coming on, man. One of the big things I talk to everyone that's come on the podcast, I talk to guys about their moments of flow and being in the zone. Why don't you talk about your moments of flow that really stand out to you from your football career?
Moments of flow and really being in the zone, I would say definitely my entire senior year. You know, I think I didn't have much of a junior year recovering from an ACL in a sophomore year. So it was, you know, in order to get an opportunity for the NFL, I had to have basically my best season of my life. And I felt like I was in flow that entire season.
Was there any game that really jumped out at you, Marcus? I know, God, you made a play in that Toledo game. There was a play where you cleared a guy. A guy tried to go low on you. You cleared him, like you just jumped right over him. And then you chased down, I think you chased down the quarterback from like 5 or 6 yards away. I was like, geez, like that was crazy. You made some crazy plays on your 2007 highlight tape, dude.
Yeah, definitely. That was definitely a play where I felt like I was in the zone. I mean, and I would attribute that play to film study because that running back that week, I knew any time a linebacker had blitzed, he went low. And so, you know, I kind of knew going in the game, if I blitzed, I'm jumping. And, you know, and that's exactly what happened. So it didn't pan out exactly how I wanted it because every linebacker dreams of jumping over the blocker and crashing the quarterback all in one. But the quarterback had took off running right when I jumped. So I definitely was able to still get into that play.
And, you know, one of the things that Mike Vick talked about in his documentary, Marcus, was there was like a moment in a play where everything was moving in slow motion for him, even though the players were running at full speed. Did you ever have any sort of visions like that, any sort of plays like that during your career?
You know, I think it's almost that. I believe that happens more on offense, to be honest. I remember plays like that as an adolescent or in youth football or even in high school where getting the ball, everything seems to slow down. But I think as I got over, I went more to the defensive side. Everything was react now and go, you know, and so I never got the slow down motion, that type of in the zone on defense. But I definitely running the ball young. There were a few games and different opportunities where, you know, everything had slowed down and you kind of see everything coming together, the blocks being made and which way you're going to cut. You got to really kind of figure it all out with your vision. I think when you're on the defensive side, everything is a reaction. So you're reacting to, you know, everything that's going on instead of making a way when you have the ball.
Yeah, you know, that's a really good description, Marcus. One thing I want to ask you about is I want to hear about your recruitment process coming out of high school. I know you have some serious connections to the Fresno State Bulldog program. Your cousin, who, by the way, I'm amazed that this guy is not in the Hall of Fame, Henry Allard. I saw that someone was campaigning for him to be in the Hall of Fame. I got to imagine he's going to be in the NFL Hall of Fame someday, but Henry Allard's jersey is actually retired at Fresno State. So I'm curious for you, were you just Fresno State all the way from day one?
You know what? I was not Fresno State all the way from day one. You know, I definitely had ties there, like you said, because of my cousin going there. And my mom is from Fresno. And so Henry was her first cousin, little cousin growing up. And so I always knew about Fresno, but I grew up wanting to go to UCLA.
Right.
So
And did UCLA not talk to you that much during the process? Talk to me. Walk me through your process. I didn't get any love from
UCLA. You know, I went to a UCLA camp after my freshman season in high school, and this was before my growth spurt. And now, so even at my biggest, I was an undersized linebacker. And so, you know, freshman going to my sophomore year, they group us up at the camp with, you know, the juniors and the seniors. And so, you know, I was one of the smallest guys, one of the slowest guys, but I still had a knack for the football and I knew how to play. And so I kind of got lost in the shuffle at the camp. They had their eyes on guys they were already recruiting. And obviously I didn't run a fast enough time or do anything as an athlete that really stood out at that time. And, you know, I felt like I wasn't good enough to be Division I going into my junior varsity year. And so I was never really a big recruit. You know, at that point, I decided I wouldn't go to any more camps because I felt like it was more aimed towards combine type of attributes. And that's never been my forte. I have football speed is what they say.
Yeah.
And so going into my junior year, you know, because I played I was one of the only guys on my Fresno State football team that played freshman football and then JV football and then 2 years of varsity. A lot of guys always played up, but I played at every level. And so I developed late, you know, and was still developing and still growing. And so my junior year in high school, we won the section championship, San Joaquin 14-0. And we had the best running back in the city at that time. Who Fresno State was recruiting, and he was getting letters from all over the country. Fortunately, you know, that added eyes to our games, and Fresno State happened to be at one of my games as a junior, and I jumped out to them just a little bit. And so Fresno State was always number 2 on my list. I wanted to go to UCLA, but I had always said if I can't go to UCLA, I would love to go to Fresno State. Now, at this time, as a junior, I only had Sac State and Portland State were the only schools recruiting me. And I figured I was going to go to Portland State. That was where my mind was kind of made up between the two. Fresno came on late, and then they offered me my senior year. Now, it's a little different in recruiting now. You know, I think going into my senior year, they had called me and told me that they need to watch the first 3 games, and then they're going to make a decision on what they want to do. And after every game, I had to send them the VHS. And so now I know all these teams, they get on Huddle, and it's easy access. So I'm sending the film down to Fresno. I'm hoping and I'm wishing because I'm already a fan of Fresno State. I know about them. I'm kind of shocked that they're recruiting me at this time. You know, I'm a 185-pound linebacker and not a big recruit. You know, I think I had 3 stars at the 2 stars or something like that at the time. And so when Fresno offered me, I took it right away. And I didn't really wait for it. I wanted to go there, and I jumped on it. They were the first Division I school that offered me. And so I took it right away. And then right after that, here comes Colorado State, here comes Boise State, here comes Oregon State. And they all wanted me to visit and do different things after that. But I was, you know, for a minute, I wanted to just take my trips to have fun. But, you know, my mind was set on Fresno. It was close to home. I had ties there already, and I really wanted to be a Bulldog. And so I made it happen.
That's awesome, man. Walk me through the hit that you put on the guy in your graphic for our Instagram page. You're tackling the running back from Boise.
Yeah, I remember that play very vividly. It's on my highlight tape. But that was my senior year. Boise actually beat us that game. But I remember that play because I think they ran power, and I was on the backside at, you know, inside linebacker and weak side inside linebacker. And they ran power, and as soon as the guard had pulled, you know, it opened up, the A-gap opened up on the backside, and I just shot straight through. Shot straight through, and the running back ran right into the running back, made a TFL. I think, that created a 3rd and long, and we got off the field, but they still ended up winning that game. But I was glad, that was a great picture out of it.
That's awesome, man. You played against a couple of the greatest college football teams of all time, man. Like, the fact that you got to play, I know you got hurt in this game, but I got to ask you about it, man. 2005 game versus USC. The USC Trojans, Matt Leinart, Steve Smith, Dwayne Jarrett, Reggie Bush, I think Wendell White. Yeah. He was probably young on that team, but talk to me about your guys' mindset heading into that game. To this day, that's got to be one of the greatest college football games of all time. And I just want to hear your perspective of your team's perspective going into it. And God, what was it like for you guys in the huddle, in the tunnel coming out for that game? Because that atmosphere was absolutely electric. Even watching it on TV now, man, it just looked like one of the most epic atmospheres ever.
Yeah, it definitely was the greatest atmosphere I've ever been a part of. One of those type of games you wait your entire life for, to be honest. Our mindset going into the game was to win the game. And I remember very vividly a conversation I had with my dad the week of that game. And he said to me, if you guys can just keep it close, that'll be good. And, and I remember it pissed me off because I'm like, keep it close.
Like, fuck you, Dad. We're winning this game.
I'm like, okay, you're on their side then. It's kind of like, if you don't believe we're going to win, then, you can keep that energy.
Here's a USC jersey for you, Dad.
Yeah, here's the USC. And he's an LA guy. So I'm like, okay, that's how you feel. And I know that he, of course, wanted us to win. But, we're talking about the number one team in the country, possibly the best offense in the history of college football. I think, 2 Heisman Trophy winners
in the same backfield.
Along with Lindell White. And Lindell White was a player on that team. We feared him as a running back more than Reggie Bush going into that game because he ran for more yards on him. His average was better. Reggie Bush was a lot more dangerous in the open field, but those two together, with the offensive line that they had, and I think every, all starting 11 guys got drafted, but it was definitely a great team and a great atmosphere going in. I remember everybody was a little bit bright-eyed and bushy-tailed going into the game.
Bushy-tailed.
And kind of oohing and ahhing, looking around. And our Coach Hill, called us in and cussed us out a little bit, saying we didn't come here to look around. And we almost went live, I think, pregame to kind of set the tone and to get ready. Like, we didn't come here to play around. We came here to handle business. And, it was devastating not being able to play in that game. That's the game that everybody remembers. And I think that we would have had a different outcome had I been able to finish that game.
Yeah. I mean, that game, obviously Reggie Bush is famous for that game. I mean, that and many other games, but God, over 500 all-purpose yards in that game when he stopped on a dime. Like, to this day, that's one of the sickest runs I've ever seen, dude. Like, the way he just completely stopped and cut all the way across the field. That was like I guess you could call it his Heisman trademark moment. But you guys, that was still definitely. Keep going.
No, I was saying we definitely gave him the Heisman that night. He definitely won it that night. I want to apologize to Vince Young now. No, I'm just playing. He earned it. He earned it. Reggie Bush was a great player. He definitely earned it. I just feel as though our defense fell apart. Not only just Reggie, I think the following week we played Nevada and their running back ran for almost 200 yards. And then the following week after that, we played Louisiana Tech. And I think they had 2 running backs over 100 yards. And so before the SC game, our defense was ranked number 1 in the WAC. And after that game and then the following games and then against Tulsa as well, our defense really never looked the same. And we went into SC 8-1 that year. I tore my ACL. We ended up finishing 8-5. So it was very rough. We had a great start to that season with a lot of talent. And it sucked to finish the way we did, knowing the type of talent we had on that team.
Dude, you guys, that kick returner you guys had in that game, that guy blew me away. Jennings, Jesus. He was top 10 in the country in kick return and punt return yardage that year.
Yeah, no, definitely. He was a player. We're still friends to this day. He ended up playing in the league got drafted by Atlanta and played for a couple other different teams. But yeah, we had guys, I think that's the biggest difference between the Fresno States and the USCs are really the bottom half of the roster, because I think you can go to any team in the country and find guys that can play the game of football. I think when you get to a team like USC, they had Ray Maluga on the bench.
Oh yeah, they were loaded.
He was a force on their special teams team, but he couldn't get on the field on defense, and we know how good of a linebacker he is. And so that was really the difference in a lot of those SC and the big-time teams is, you go to that second string and you're still dealing with a 5-star guy, a big-time guy. Whereas, you lose a guy like myself on our defense and, the next man up, might not be ready.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty good analysis, Marcus. Definitely agree with you on that. There were a couple other plays on your highlight tape that were absolutely ridiculous. Like you had a play where Hawaii had like a run where the guy was essentially on the other side of the field and you run about like 10 yards to catch him. Like that was absolutely insane. Like you basically chased him down straight down the line, it was like you were shot out of a cannon. And then there was a play against Utah State. You absolutely destroyed their quarterback, dude. You look like you were shot out of a cannon up the middle at that guy.
Yeah, I remember both of those plays, and the similarities between both of those plays is, once I got the read, I had to go. And so the different, on the play where I hit the guy from Utah State, it was a blitz. And so I kind of timed it up just perfectly to where the O-lineman didn't know I was blitzing. And as soon as, the ball was snapped, it kind of opened like the Red Sea. Nobody accounted for me. That's another one of those linebacker dreams where you're not being blocked. You just get to run it. You just get to run and hit the quarterback. Those opportunities don't come too often to where they just don't block you. So you want to make sure you make those plays.
Yeah, dude, you absolutely smashed the guy from Utah State. I was like, holy cow. And the play that you're really most famous for, I think the video's gotten like 7,000 views, is the hit you put on Colt Brennan in the Hawaii game. Oh my God. That is one of the hardest hits I mean, you literally take about a 15-yard run and start diagonal. I was kind of surprised Brennan didn't go out of bounds, to be honest, because he kind of had the opportunity to go out of bounds and then he kind of decided to bounce it back in. And man, you absolutely destroyed him.
Yeah, I attribute that play to a drill I called the banana drill. And it's not really my drill I made up, but basically where you focus on taking away the inside, if you have, because football is a team sport, right? And so I think a problem with a lot of guys when they're pursuing trying to cut the man off. Well, if everybody is trying to cut off the ball carrier, there's always going to be room for that ball carrier to cut back, and the thing about, Colt and why he didn't run out of bounds is he's a competitor. And, and I was fortunate to play against him on 3 separate occasions. My freshman year, we played against Timmy Chang. But I played against Colt on 3 separate occasions, and this one being the third time. And I know he competes. And that specific play, it was 3rd and 7. And he was thinking make a first down. And so when his eyes were on the cornerback and he's thinking, do I run over this guy? Do I go around? Do I go out of bounds? Well, it's 3rd down. I got to get to this first down. And by the time he had looked to cut in, I had already, I was already, barreling down on the inside out. And I knew that if he cut back, it was going to be, bad business. And normally as a linebacker, when I have an angle like that and I'm just running through the lane, they normally don't cut back, and it doesn't work out exactly how you see it. But it was either he had a chance to go out of bounds, he would hit our cornerback, or hit me. And so I knew that if he cut inside, then I was going to make that play.
Yeah, man, that was a monster hit. Certainly one of the biggest I've ever seen. And I know they had to bring in Tyler Gronke after that because he was done for the game. And I mean, rightfully so, dude. He was out for a couple minutes after that. But I got to talk to him about that hit, and he's like, that's football, and that's a guy that respects the other side of the ball. Like I think like in the NFL, they're really making the game soft nowadays. I know you as a defender, you probably agree with this, that, way too many flags protecting the quarterback. I see a guy like Tom Brady staring down the referee every other play when he gets hit low. It really makes me sick. I'm not sure how you feel about it, but being a defender in the National Football League, man, you talk about a hard business nowadays, man. Jeez.
It's a tough job, man. I feel like if you hit a guy too hard, now you're questioning yourself, are you going to get a penalty? And they say the head and neck area, but everywhere where you wear pads is the head and neck area. You have shoulder pads and you have a helmet. The shoulder pads and the helmet were created to not only protect yourself, but to hit, and so it just sucks that the more hurt a guy is, the more likely you are to get a penalty now. And I feel like I was part of that last era that was able to really hit, and we can, you're looking for a defensive receiver or, anything of that nature without really worrying about getting the penalty for hitting a guy, unless you're trying to spear a guy. But, I don't like where the game has gone in that respect. But at the same time, if it is going to help out the safety of the game, then I'm all for it. I'm glad I don't have to tackle in this climate because, it's hard. It's hard to know. It's hard to know where to aim, and these guys are moving really fast. And so when guys are moving really fast and full speed like that, it makes it very hard to know where to go. These are professionals, and so a lot of times guys are slowing down to make the right play and end up missing the tackle because the other athlete is he's so good that if you're not thinking about just getting him on the ground, that one, misstep could cost you a play.
Yeah, it's frustrating for me. I love all the hits, and I mean, I'm probably an offensive guy first and foremost, but I love watching football because I love the hits, and I'm not afraid to admit it. It's one of the greatest games ever because of that, and it really frustrates me when I watch old highlights of guys like Steve Atwater and guys like that. And you just realize they never would have been able to hit like that in today's NFL. They would have been fined and flagged and God knows, but anyways, what was your favorite memory for you from your Fresno State playing days, Marcus? Like game or just, what was your favorite memory from Fresno State?
Favorite memory from Fresno State. Man, that's tough. I would have to go. My favorite memory from Fresno State would happen to be my last game. And that's when we played against Georgia Tech in the NPC Computer Bowl in Boise, and we won. And I think, if I were to pick a moment, I'm picking that moment just because it kind of culminated everything together. Being able to, the reason why I went to Fresno State is to not only get an opportunity to play, but to get an opportunity to play against big schools and schools outside of our conference and beat those schools. And so it sucked that a lot of times we came close in these games, losing to Oregon by 3 or SC by 8. And then we beat Washington and some other schools, or triple overtime loss to Texas A&M. It just felt good to finish my career with a win that last game. I would say that was my best memory.
Is that when Georgia Tech, they were running the triple option then, right?
They were running the triple option then.
God, how annoying is it going against the triple option, Marcus? I watched that and it's just infuriating to watch. Like, I hate the triple option, dude.
Yeah, it wasn't, honestly, as a linebacker, for me personally, I love it only because it gives you have rules and you play by the rules. And so if everybody can be disciplined and play by the rules, you're all assigned a guy. And if you can stay on your assignment, as tedious as it may be, if you can stay on your assignment, you can dominate that offense. But like I said, it's hard to do, especially when you're on a short week or you don't have that much time to prepare. I think it definitely helped us that we had a month to prepare for Georgia Tech.
Yeah, Paul Johnson, man. I always couldn't stand watching that offense over the years, dude. It's just, I'd rather watch paint dry, dude. Like that triple option. But that is a good analysis of that, Marks. I mean, everyone I hear talk about the triple option, they talk about how disciplined you have to be as a defender. So that's a very good description of how you had to play it, because it would just, Paul Johnson, that guy, it seemed like he would always get in fourth and short, and that guy would go for it on fourth all the time. It was like, is this guy playing like Madden or something? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
drove me nuts, dude. God damn, that guy. He was good at running it. I mean, that's what made them so good. And I get why he ran it, because, they can never really get like the exceptional athletes, but the funny thing about Georgia Tech is like I still will never understand how the hell they got Calvin Johnson to go there, like when they're running the triple option.
Yeah, exactly. I think he came in the year after I left, but yeah, it's interesting to see how certain guys end up at certain schools, or how he was passed up on by certain schools.
And I think he just wanted to stay at home. I think that was Calvin's biggest reason for going to Georgia Tech. I think he wanted to stay in state, but it was fascinating to me that, like, out of all places, like, one of the greatest receivers of all time decides to go to a triple option offense. You know what I mean? It was puzzling, but, I mean, Calvin was going to be great no matter what, so. Talk to me a little bit about your experiences in the NFL, Marcus. I know you were with the Packers and you were with the Bears, and then I know you spent a little bit of time in the UFL. So talk to me about your pro career a little bit.
Okay, well, to start, started off as an undrafted free agent, and so right after the draft, and here's a little story that a lot of people don't know. So during the draft, I'm watching, of course, with my family, and we get to the 7th round, and the Rams have 2 picks, and the Rams needed a linebacker, and my cousin was on the staff, Henry Elliott.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had talked to the Rams earlier that week, and I thought for sure I would go there, and they ended up drafting 2 other linebackers in that round, and I was super pissed about it. And so when they offered me a free agent contract, I was so mad I turned it down and decided to go to Green Bay, because Green Bay didn't draft a linebacker. But hindsight being 2020, when I got to Green Bay, I realized they didn't need a linebacker. They were pretty stacked. I was kind of like, man, this is the league. This is the NFL. These guys are all good. I don't know how I'm going to make this team. They had Desmond Bishop was the third string Mike at the time.
God, that's a guy from didn't he go to Cal?
Yeah, he went to Cal.
Dude, he was a beast, man. Desmond Bishop was a dog, dude.
Desmond Bishop was a beast. He was the third string Mike that year, which just shows you how much depth and how good they were. And then, the third string Will, Patrick White. No, it wasn't Patrick, but White, I believe. He was he was one of the best special teams guys on the team. And they were just kind of stacked. They just had a great team. Brandon Chiller was on that team. Bobby, Papinga, AJ Hawk. They just had a lot of depth at the linebacker position. I didn't have a lot of room there. And I actually didn't make it to camp. And so we're there for OTAs, and we're doing all the OTAs. And I get cut before we even get to camp. And so my bags are packed at home, and I'm preparing to go to camp. And 2 days, they already sent me my itinerary to fly out there. So 2 days before I'm supposed to go, my bags are already packed. I'm ready to go on my journey as an NFL linebacker. And they call me and tell me they're going a different direction and said that I didn't do anything wrong. They just don't have the space. And I think they were giving another guy a shot at a different position. And I just happened to be low man on the totem pole. And so I was kind of devastated because I didn't have any NFL tape at the time. I didn't think another team would pick me up because the season is getting ready to start and everybody already has their guys. So a guy got hurt in St. Louis 9 days into camp, and they gave me a call and said, hey, come out here. We got an opening. We want you to sign. We want to sign you. And now I'm excited. I get an opportunity. I get another chance. Although it wasn't a big opportunity, it was an opportunity. And so my first practice was a live scrimmage. I get there day one. I'm in full belief that I can make this team. Mm-hmm. After one or two practices, I definitely felt like my odds were better in St. Louis than they were in Green Bay. And it was why they had drafted 2 linebackers in the 7th round. They needed depth at that position. And so after a couple practices, next thing you know, I'm starting on all special teams, and it hits me that, okay, they're giving me an opportunity. This is my chance to make a play, to make a splash, to do something and make this team. And I didn't play good enough. I was really worried about making mistakes, and I didn't do anything special on special teams. And so that's why I believe I didn't make that team. The linebacker coach liked me, but at the same time, he told me I can only do so much. You have to, get these other coaches on your side. I watch you in individual drills, but they have to see you in some of these preseason games start making plays.
Right.
And
such a limited opportunity window.
Such a limited opportunity window because the thing about special teams, a lot of times the plays got to come to you.
You're right. That's a good point.
And I just wasn't, man. The special teams coach called me in the office. He says, "How many tackles you got?" After I think the first 2 games, and I said none. He was like, "Well, I don't care what your potential is. When we're looking at your production, you have none." And so it's like, man, like, what can I say? You know what I mean? Like I'm not producing, but at the same time, I'm not, I feel like the ball's not coming to me.
Yeah, it's
so
true,
the
man.
very next game on punt, I'm like, all right, I don't care where the ball is at. I'm going to get it. Or, so I go out of my lane on punt and then they cut back where I'm supposed to be. So I'm like, oh, man. So, and that's what happens sometimes when you start trying so hard and playing outside of yourself and you're worried about making a mistake. I wasn't playing, comfortable, and that was the first opportunity. And, guys that get drafted or invested money into they get a chance to
Make
some of those
mistakes.
mistakes.
Yeah.
And stick around a little longer if there's money, if they want you, if they're invested in you, basically. And so, I know that I did have an opportunity. It just was limited. And, I tell guys all the time, I just didn't play like myself when I had the opportunity, but it was still fun. And so, I only had about 2.5 weeks to prove myself, whereas I was competing with guys that had 4 or 5 months during OTAs and whatnot. And I just didn't play good enough, and so I didn't outplay them enough, I felt, to make the roster. And so they let me go. And I'm bummed. I'm bummed again. I'm at home trying to figure out the next move and working out and waiting for a call. And, you're sitting around hoping guys get hurt, and and it sucks for me because I'm a will linebacker. And, the NFL is such a copycat league that was right around the push for 3-4 defenses. And a lot of the teams that run a 3-4 defenses, they feel as though I don't meet their scheme size wise. I'm limited by how big I am. And so I become.
Why they want you to be about 20 pounds heavier or something like that?
Not only just heavier, but just bigger, taller, all of those things, and they're looking for the big run stuffers that can play tackle to tackle, or they were looking for those guys in 07. Or they're looking for the hybrid rush in guys, which has become more prevalent in today's game, right? A lot of the outside linebackers that are on the all-pro team and get most of the love, in my opinion, are really glorified defensive ends.
Yeah.
They rush almost every play.
Like Von Miller.
Like Von Miller, who's an amazing player, but he's a DN.
You're right.
He's a rush maniac. You know what I mean? And he can still play. He's a great enough athlete. He can definitely play in the field, but it's just a different form of linebacker.
Yeah.
In my opinion. And, and I'm a fan of Derek Thomas and Lawrence Taylor and those guys as well, played in that 3-4 defense. But, a lot of times those guys are, DNs, DeMarcus Ware and guys like that. And so I played more of a traditional weak side, inside linebacker position that they kind of stuck that on me being the only thing that I can do. And that minimized the amount of jobs there were for me. And so, I floated around, or I was at the house, and I got called out to a Broncos workout throughout that season, and they ended up not signing me. And then I signed with the Bears later on that year. And I don't believe that was much of an opportunity at all. Maybe it was just to see me, but I never got to touch anybody. When you're on practice squad in the middle of the season, all the players are just trying to make it to next week healthy.
Right.
And so they don't want you to run too fast. They don't want you to do too much. You're not going to earn a spot today. You're going to do what's on the card. You're going to do it slow enough so you don't make me look bad, and just prepare us for Sunday. We don't care about nothing else. And so, I'm doing what I'm told throughout these plays and throughout, and they ended up cutting me. And I was very disappointed. I got a real taste of the NFL at this point because, I'm preparing. I'm the whole time I signed a futures contract after the season. And as soon as I signed, I'm like, I can't wait until I get to camp, because then I'll get a chance to actually play.
Right. Get some more reps.
And they can see what I can do, because the type of player I am, we got to go full go. I'm an undersized linebacker. So when you see me running around, I'm not going to impress you. I don't pass the eyeball test, And so when you see me running around undersized, it doesn't look like much, to be honest. And then when we put all the pads on and blow the whistle, then, it's a different side of me that can come out. But the Bears, they re-signed me and they kept me through January, February, March, when all free agents are getting signed. And then, somewhere around mid-March, before we were going back for OTAs, they released me. And I couldn't understand why, I re-signed and then went back home. And I'm like, man, and so now all the teams that were interested in signing me, they had all turned their focus to the NFL. To the draft. And so once their focus went to the draft, that left me out of a job. And then the UFL happened to be starting that same year. And so, the timing on it was nice. I went to one UFL workout. They signed me on the spot. And I was excited. And, I did that in hopes of getting more NFL workouts. But it just never panned out like that. I still played. But, it sucked that I was only playing special teams in the UFL. They had me
you were a monster on special teams. Looking at your highlights, man.
Yeah, I made it, and that's the thing. I have fun with it, and I realized that was going to be my way back into the NFL. I ended up not getting a workout, but, I played behind Teddy Lehman,
Oh, yeah, Oklahoma.
Guy. So, I wasn't behind a slouch. He had won the Biletnikoff Award, not the Biletnikoff, but the
Bednarik.
Dick Butkus, Bednarik. The bed.
One of those, I bet.
One of those, yeah, Bednarik or the Butkus Award, and I respected him as a linebacker, and so I didn't mind being behind him, but of course I would have enjoyed more time on the defensive side of the ball, but it was fun. I enjoyed my career. We played there 3 years, won 2 championships, and I got out actually right in time. My linebacker coach from Fresno State, the guy who recruited me, Tom Mason, who is my mentor and I still have a close relationship with to this day. He was at SMU at the time, and he called me and he said, "Hey, I know you're still playing ball. I have an opportunity for you. They're allowing me to bring in a couple more GAs, and I'll give you about 30 days to make a decision." And so, I kind of tossed and turned over it. And I felt like after year 3, I still didn't have any NFL workouts. So I didn't want to become a career UFL guy. And I decided to take the opportunity at SMU. And the UFL actually ended up folding that year. And so I was glad I made that decision.
Listening to the Flow Theory Podcast. You can listen to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and TuneIn.